After a long period of waiting for Nintendo to reveal Wave 2 of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass, it finally happened a few weeks ago, and this one is a massive improvement over the first wave. While there are still some issues with the Booster Course Pass in general, this wave of courses is even better and more unique than the first. In this video, I'll be doing two things. First, I'll talk about all of my general thoughts on Wave 2 of the Booster Course Pass, both the good stuff and the bad stuff. Secondly, I'll be ranking and reviewing every track that this new wave featured. But before we start, if you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing. I'm planning on making more Mario Kart videos on this channel in the future, and you're not going to want to miss them. But with that being said, let's start off by talking about my general thoughts on Wave 2 of the Booster Course Pass. Wave 2 is widely regarded to be much better than Wave 1. Firstly, the graphics in this wave are a huge improvement over Wave 1. The textures have slightly more detail, the courses are less bright and more vibrant, and everything just looks better. While most of the new courses still can't compare to the base game tracks when it comes to quality, some of them are getting pretty close to it. I really do hope Nintendo sees people's problems with this quality and takes the DLC a step further and makes it look like the base game. But I'm at least happy they're starting to try to make the courses not look like clay. This wave also had a much better course selection overall. We got a few fan favorites, a few fun surprises, some more Mario Kart Tour tracks, and even a brand new track, which is now a Mario Kart Tour as well. There was some great course variety, and each course had a good layout and was fun to drive on to some extent. The music in most of these courses was also extremely good. Some of the tracks I wish had remixes changed a little bit more than they seem to be, and I really wish they put in the time to remix Waluigi Pinball, but especially Mushroom Gorge, as that track deserved a remix, and it's really weird we didn't get one. Another thing I greatly appreciated about Wave 2 was the addition of something in Wave 1. After countless fans had complaints that the cars didn't move at the end of Coconut Mall, Nintendo did something very unexpected and changed it so that the cars do move now. This is a really nice thing to see from Nintendo, given that they often don't change things that fans want changed. It's nice to know that they may be improving a little. The final thing that I really appreciate about Wave 2 is that Nintendo seems to be figuring out shortcuts more. With tracks like Mushroom Gorge and Snowland, it's apparent Nintendo is starting to have Lakitu be a little bit less strict. A lot of fans thought Gap Jump wouldn't work in Mushroom Gorge, but to some people's surprise, Nintendo actually allowed it to be possible. In most of these courses, they allowed some sort of shortcut to exist. Some of these may have been unintentional, sure, but it's really nice to see lots and lots of shortcuts be included throughout these courses. In conclusion, Wave 2 of the Booster Course Pass was a very solid upgrade over Wave 1. It shares a lot of the same problems as the first wave, but to a lesser extent. So now, it's time to get into the details of each track in this new set of courses. In last place of the courses in Wave 2 is SNES Mario Circuit 3. Now let me just say right off the bat that this course isn't actually that bad. It's much better than what I was expecting. The design is decent enough with a few small improvements over the Wii version of this track. The layout of this course is also very solid. Each turn is satisfying to drift on. There's lots of off-road to cut through, which is very satisfying to pull off and can certainly save a decent amount of time. The track is pretty good for both time trials and online play. It can get very stale after a while, but that's expected when you're playing Mario Circuit. It has a nice length and has pretty decent music. When it comes to music, I do wish it was a little more of a remix. And to start off the problems with this course, the quality is just not good. It's definitely the worst looking track in Wave 2, and while it does look better than Toad Circuit, it still just doesn't look good. It also doesn't have any elevation whatsoever. In fact, I'm pretty sure this track is the only course in the game where you can't trick off of anything, not including Baby Park. The other problem I have with this track is very simple. Its existence in the game is just silly. Nintendo should have just picked one of the other SNES Mario Circuits in my opinion, as we already have a solid Mario Circuit 3 and Mario Kart Wii, and this one barely even feels like an upgrade over that. I would have loved to see the original Mario Circuit, as it'd be cool to have the first ever Mario Kart track in this DLC. I just think Nintendo could have picked a more interesting environment instead of this track, and while it's still a pretty solid course, I think the rest of the tracks are better overall, which is why this is 8th place. This next track is an interesting one for sure, as it had a lot of potential but didn't quite stick the landing. Let's talk about Sky High Sundae. Firstly, this track has an interesting design. It's an ice cream themed track with lots of cool little details. The music is also pretty average for this game, which is still very good. However, the quality of this track doesn't look that good, especially considering it's the first Nitro track of the Booster Course Pass. You can easily tell it's from Tour, despite it coming out in this DLC first. I've heard a lot of people say this course kind of looks like a custom track, and I can definitely agree. It looks like it's from Fall Guys, and there's lots of weird choices in the overall design, like the fences giving you anti-gravity boost, despite there being no indication that this would be the case. In my opinion, they should have just removed the fences entirely. On the topic of anti-gravity, I'm so glad it made another appearance here. It definitely works in this course, but the main reason I'm happy about this is the potential of anti-gravity being in even more future tracks, which is really exciting. I'm also very excited for the potential of future Nitro tracks being added, because before this wave was announced, we didn't know we'd be getting new tracks revealed via the Booster Course Pass, even if they were created for Tour. As for the actual layout of this course, it's pretty bad. The course had a lot of potential, but they essentially just made it a glorified Excitebike arena, as the course only has 2 turns in it, and the rest is pretty much just tricking off different terrain during straightaways. The track is very underwhelming after the first few seconds, especially on 150cc. It also has no intentional shortcuts, which brings it down a lot as well. Notice how I say intentional here, as a 200cc exclusive shortcut was found for this course, which lets you take a way straighter line on the ice packs near the end of the course. In fact, 200cc of the course is very fun, and it's the only reason this track barely beats out Mario Circuit 3. But yeah, that's all I have to say about this course, so let's move on to number 6. New York Minute is decent. This one's interesting as there's really not much objectively bad about this course. It's just a little bit boring and uninteresting. The design itself is pretty good. I appreciate how each of the 3 laps are different, even if they're not changed too much, and I often get confused which way I'm supposed to go. There are lots of little details throughout the course, which definitely gives it a little more personality. The layout is good as well, allowing each turn to feel satisfying. There are only a few off-road shortcuts, but they're each well placed, and the main one is off to the side enough so that it can feel hidden and easy to forget about. The track's a good length, and also probably has the best quality of any of the Tour tracks so far. Most of it looks very solid. The music is also a really good remix from the Tour version, and definitely fits the course nicely. The only problem I have with this course is I would have liked a few more obstacles. You have a few well-placed Goombas in lap 1, and maybe lap 2, but I would have appreciated it if they put a couple more throughout lap 2, and also added some into lap 3, as the whole ending section of this course feels very empty and simple. Overall though, this is a very solid remake that combines the variants from Tour very nicely, and while it could have been harder, it's still a solid track. Alright, this one might be controversial, but at number 5, I have DS Waluigi Pinball. I have a lot to say about this course. When I was around 9 years old, I loved this course. I don't know if it was the cool glider at the start of the course or what, but I have very fond memories of playing this track in Mario Kart 7. So this was easily my most anticipated course when Wave 2 was announced. Unfortunately, I realized 9-year-old me was stupid, because this course isn't as good as I originally thought. I have 3 main problems with this track. To start with my smallest problem, the cycles the pinballs are on feel a bit off. It's very easy, especially in time trials, to accidentally hit the pinball, especially in the whole pinball section. I know that's the point of the track, but in my opinion, when the course is this long, it should be a little bit easier, especially considering how frustrating time trials can get on much shorter courses. That leads into my second issue. I think this track would work better if it was 2 laps. Half the time I'm playing this course, I think it's over after the second lap, before realizing there's still one more. Even if they removed a lap, it'd still be longer than some of the courses in the game. Seriously, it's actually insane how long this track is, and in my opinion, it'd be a bit better if it was either a lap shorter, or if it wasn't quite as frustrating. My final problem with the track is the lack of shortcuts. It's really hard to get ahead of players after having bad luck with the pinball section, due to there being no good spots to use your mushrooms. For a track this long, there really should be 1 or 2 shortcuts, and it's pretty disappointing that they didn't bother trying to improve this course just a little bit, because honestly, if even 2 of these problems were fixed, This would have potential to be one of my all-time favorite Mario Kart tracks. Those are my main 3 issues with this track. There are a few small other things, like some of the turns feeling a bit weird or the music being exactly the same as Wario Stadium, but I'm not going to dive into those problems too much here. Now, while there are some pretty big problems I have with this course, there are still a few good things about this track too. Firstly, the overall design of this track is very cool. This is definitely the best Waluigi pinball has ever looked. The glider section at the beginning is still very cool and makes this course still give me some sense of nostalgia despite my problems with it. It still has its charm and takes place in a very interesting and unique environment. And due to the difficulty, there are actually some consequences when you mess up, which can be nice when the mistake was actually your fault. Quality-wise, this is probably the best looking track in the Booster Course Pass so far. The less realistic art style works extremely nicely here, and the graphics are pretty much solid every time you play this track. And even though this course is a huge pain in the ass in time trials, it can still sometimes be pretty fun online due to its chaotic nature. Overall, this track still has the same highs that the other versions had, but it does have some lows that hold me back from placing it higher. With that being said, let's move on to my top 4 tracks of Wave 2. Calamari Desert in Wave 2 is easily the definitive version of the course. Firstly, the design. The design of this track is pretty damn good. The track looks very nice in HD, and the graphics are better than most other courses in the Booster Course Pass so far, despite there being a lot of undetailed off-road. There are definitely a few interesting details throughout the track, and overall, it takes place in a fairly interesting environment. The turns throughout the track are pretty fun to take, with few exceptions. But the best part about this track is how Nintendo took the extra step forward to make each lap different to match the 2 variants of the course from Tour. While this does make the course feel a little shorter than you'd expect, that's not necessarily a bad thing. The fact that Nintendo had the initiative to let drivers actually go through the tunnel is just so cool, and it's really nice to see some actual effort put into this fan favorite. It was definitely a very pleasant surprise. The course is fairly decent for time trials, but it definitely runs a lot better in 200cc, which is something I usually don't feel for most tracks. Online works very well in this track too, especially with the amount of shortcuts you can take and the chaos that can sometimes happen in the tunnel portion. The music fits the course very nicely, and while in my opinion it's a slight downgrade from the original music, it's still very nice. As for a couple of problems I have with this track, I kind of wish the tunnel was just a tiny bit wider, because the train can be a little bit annoying at times. Some things can also make time trials frustrating sometimes, especially the shortcut at the beginning, as it feels a little bit weird for some reason. But overall, this course is very good, and definitely the best version of Calamari Desert we've gotten so far. Now we're heading into the top 3. In the first few days of Wave 2's release, I couldn't decide which of the 3 tracks I liked the most and which one I liked the least. So I can understand if you like any of these 3 tracks the most in the Booster Course Pass. But for number 3, I'm going to have to go with Sydney Sprint, the track I had at number 1 for the first few days of the Wave's release. I really like the setting of this track, and I really like the way it changes laps, and in my opinion, that's executed the best of any Tour City tracks so far. The course had some really fun turns, and each lap has a nice variety of areas to visit, with some shortcuts in lap 2 and 3. When it comes to the problems I have with the layout of this track, there's not much. I'm not a huge fan of some of the shortcuts in this course. Some of them just aren't very satisfying to make, and a few of them feel really strange for whatever reason, especially the shortcut at the ending of lap 3. I'm also not a huge fan of some of the long straightaways in this course, but most of them aren't a problem because of the big ramps you can trick off of being added in to give you an option of something to do during these straightaways. The track is very fun in both time trials and online, especially due to the music, which is one of my favorites in the game now. Very solid remix from the Tour version as well. While this track isn't anything special when it comes to the graphics, the layout more than makes up for that. Overall, this is a really nice remake from the Tour version of this track, and while the shortcuts could have been spaced out and executed a little bit better, it's still very fun. GBA retro tracks in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe are always something special, and GBA Snowland is no exception. This track is such a good remake. The penguins are a nice obstacle and a great addition to the track as well. I love how this course looks. The quality is some of the best of the DLC courses so far. The turns are very satisfying, and there's a really nice variety of shortcuts throughout the track. This course is very fun online and in time trials. The music is also extremely good, and a great remix of the original version. While I'm not a huge fan of slippery ground in tracks, it's not really that annoying, especially in 150cc. I'm still trying to get used to the turns in 200cc, but they're not as bad as I imagined they'd be. Overall, a very solid remake. It was especially hard picking between this and my number one choice, so now it's time to talk about why number one beat this course. Wee Mushroom Gorge. This is an extremely fun course. It does a great job of making the track feel like an adventure, and the beginning also does a good job of working up to the tunnel portion of the track with the different amount of mushrooms you bounce off of. There are some really nice shortcuts as well, with a very well hidden shortcut at the beginning, which is built into the stage really nicely. The off-road cut at the end of the track is also very nice to have, as an alternative for people who choose not to go for gap jump. Speaking of gap jump, it is awesome that this returned. I don't care if Nintendo knew about it or not, this shortcut alone is the reason why I have this course over Snowland. I really hope Nintendo did know about this, because the fact Lakitu doesn't prevent you from taking the shortcut is really awesome, and it's very nice to have another shortcut in the game that actually takes skill to perform, especially in 150cc. This track is very fun in time trials as well as online. The setting is really cool, and I really like the different types of mushrooms in the cave section. Every turn is extremely satisfying to pull off, not requiring much brake drifting in 200cc, while still having them be not extremely easy in 150cc. The track's quality is also very nice, with only a few things that look a little weird. The music is also very good, and fits the course extremely well, although it is very lame that we weren't able to get any remix made for this track for whatever reason. Overall, this track is definitely my favorite in the Booster Course Pass so far, and the shortcuts alone were executed perfectly. Anyways, thanks to everyone who watched this far. Make sure you like the video and all that shit. Feel free to comment down below your thoughts on Wave 2, and give me your ranking of the courses as well. I think I'm going to stop making these Booster Course Pass wave reviews scripted for future waves, simply because I haven't been putting much time into the scripts, and if I'm being honest, I don't really care about the quality of this little mini-series, as it's just an extra thing I'm doing on my second channel for now, and also, if you can't tell from my voice, reading off scripts is a very painful thing to do. When the Booster Course Pass is done entirely, I'll likely do a big scripted video ranking every track in the game, with the inclusion of all these new DLC tracks, but with that being said, thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see you all next time.